Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 10th episode of Common Language. We are so excited to be entering our double digit era, and we thought it might be fun to switch it up a little bit and do a bonus episode where we talk a little bit more about our lives, what has inspired us to get interested in politics, and a little bit more about our backgrounds. But we would be remiss if we did not start with our top line T in three. So, as usual, I will hand it off to Mac and then we'll get into our chit chat.
Thanks, Case. So for today's top line in tea, we have three stories, starting off with Congress. There is potentially a government shutdown in our horizons. So Congress has until September 31st to pass a funding bill to continue funding the government. However, it doesn't seem like there is a clear path to said legislation. This week, the House introduced and wound up passing in their chamber a short term funding bill. Essentially, this funding bill would fund the government for 7 weeks. And it's what you would call a quote, clean CR, meaning that CR stands for continuing resolution. So it continues the past spending bill for however much amount of time, in this case, 7 weeks. A lot of times people will think that it's not clean because they can add on different attachments and like other random things. That's not really the case in this bill. It is clean. There was one rider, which was the allocation of a bucket of money for security for Congress members. However, the issue that the Democrats have with this bill is that there aren't the write-ons that they want in it. Democrats were pushing for Republicans to add in a couple different healthcare provisions to this bill. One of those healthcare provisions being continuing these healthcare subsidies that expire December 31st. They're Affordable Care Act ones. So, given that, Republicans aren't super keen on negotiating with Democrats on this. So, that's an issue. Secondly, Democrats wanted some reforms to the newly passed One Big Beautiful Bill Act around some healthcare pieces. They're likely not going to get their way on that one, but nevertheless, the bill failed in the Senate. Two Republicans voted against it, and only one Democrat voted for it. So John Fetterman from Pennsylvania voted in favor. However, Susan Collins and Rand Paul voted against it. Either way you split it, there was not enough votes to pass. We have about 2 weeks at this point, and the House is supposed to be out of session next week. So we may see a government shutdown in the very near future. Number two, there's a lot of aftermath from the recent Charlie Kirk assassination, namely the cancellation of late night shows and chaotic congressional hearings. So, following Jimmy Kimmel's remarks in his opening monologue, the FCC chairman made some comments. I don't know if it was on social media or another channel, but made comments basically to the effect of threatening potential action against ABC. And so as a result, ABC swiftly removed Jimmy Kimmel's show indefinitely from their lineup after a lot of pressure from the different broadcast networks. A lot of people are questioning the FCC's role in censorship and their interpretation of the First Amendment. And a lot of people are speculating that ABC folded because right now the networks are trying to merge. FCC is the federal agency that approves mergers in the broadcasting space. We saw how things fared with Stephen Colbert and CBS as they were trying to get a merger deal through. Colbert made some comments about Trump that rubbed them the wrong way. He got the axe, and then CBS got the merger that they wanted. Moving on to number three. So, Trump and Department of Education Secretary Linda McMahon announced that they would be injecting HBCUs with over $400 million in funding. This is, I feel, interesting. It's like good and bad news at the same time. I think it's great to see the injection of capital into these universities. However, it came at the cost of other minority serving institutions and predominantly Black institutions. So they took away money from those colleges and then redirected them specifically to HBCUs. There's a little bit of a difference between HBCUs, MSIs, and PBIs. HBCUs were founded before the civil rights era in the 1960s, whereas minority serving institutions and PBIs just happen to serve larger minority communities. So they're taking the funds away from those schools, reallocating them to HBCUs. And we'll also continue to see how things shake out with other future funding decisions when Congress makes a decision around the appropriations.
Thank you for that breakdown, Mac. And I do want to say that in light of all of the crazy news and the censorship and everything that's going on, it's even more important for grassroots conversations like what we're having here for people to really be able to use their critical thinking skills, which is something that I just think we've been putting to the wayside for far too long. A big reason for why we started this podcast. So, Mac, why don't we take it all the way back and you give us a little history of your life and what brought you into politics?
Yeah, it's also a great time to have a little bit of a lighter get to know us episode with everything that's going on right now and just reflect on why we're here and what brought us to this point and also what we see this being a vehicle for and our vision for this podcast now and in the future. But taking you all back to 1992. Wow, we're going way back there now.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm a 92 baby along with Case. I'm a Taurus also, but more about me personally. I grew up in New Jersey, specifically the Central Jersey area, which may be a controversial hot take because a lot of people think that Jersey is a binary between North and South Jersey, but I am from Mercer County, which is Central Jersey. It does exist. I can confirm. I lived there. I grew up there, a suburb in Central Jersey. I grew up with my mom and my sister mostly. And when I graduated and left New Jersey for the first time, I went to the University of Connecticut. And at UConn, I majored in political science and urban and community studies. We talked about this a little bit on I think it was our second episode on universities, but long story short, I really enjoyed my time in college. I learned a lot and also had a lot of fun, and obviously met Casey there. My interest in both like community and policy, what has inspired me to go down the career path that I did. Specifically, right out of college, I did a program called AmeriCorps, which is a program in which different young people are paired at either nonprofits or schools or other community-based organizations. And you basically do direct service for a year. I worked at a nonprofit that provided out of school time programming for middle school students in Washington, D.C. And I always go back to that because that has really inspired the rest of my career trajectory. From that role, I went into research and program evaluation with the goal of trying to use my research skills because I'm just a very like curious person and my writing skills because I love to write, using those skills in research and program evaluation to understand what types of programs, what types of interventions are best at closing the opportunity gap in our country. I learned a lot from doing that. Also, did a little stint at grad school at Duke in Durham, North Carolina, where I got my master's of public policy. I will say the same thing, like time of my life. I love being a student. If I could, I would
Mhm.
just be a student all the time and not work because I like school. And similarly at Duke, I had a lot of fun and also learned a lot. And after program evaluation and research, I went more into the legislative politics and policy making sector or space in the political and community world. And I worked as a policy advisor to a member of Congress and currently do government affairs for a community development financial institution. And so, in both of these roles, I've had a front row seat to Congress and how the sausage really gets made. That is what really brought me to this podcast with Casey. Having both like that on the ground experience when I
Yeah.
was doing direct service and research, implementing these programs, evaluating these programs
Yep.
with the people who were running them,
Yeah.
and then moving back to DC and seeing how like legislation and policy is actually made and passed made me want to like share that knowledge and share my perspective.
Especially throughout different administrations, because at this point you've had a tenured career. There are multiple eras within each section of your career that have also lent itself very differently to, you know, your own messaging.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all those different pieces that like I feel like have come together. So I consider myself an advocate, a policy expert that I'm always learning because as we talk about all the time, policy is so wonky. That's like the word that we use to describe it. But I'm so excited that we're building this platform in this space because policy can get so wonky. I think it is a barrier to the the
Yes.
commoners
Yes.
engaging with policy and having just like layman terms conversations. And so the whole goal here is to dissect all the layers and complexities and wonkiness and just give it to the people straight. And I hope that's what we're accomplishing here. But that's a little bit about me and my background and what brought me to being excited about this project.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. It's so interesting for me because Mac has always been on this policy track. She's always been really involved in different community programmings. And honestly, she's part of the reason, she's a huge reason for my knowledge of any of this because I'm a fashion girl, like true mall rat from birth. I grew up in Connecticut for the most part and went to UConn with the intention of working in fashion PR, and I had one internship in fashion PR and was like, maybe something else, but still fashion. And so the past 10 years of my life have been dedicated to retail expansion, policy programs within a retail environment, operations, how a store functions, how stores also fare in different economic points. Business is growing larger and smaller.
Mhm.
And the ways in which policies such as tariffs really impact small businesses. I've had the privilege of working for really big companies that have taught me a lot about what it's like to really be in a big corporation. And currently, I'm working at a really small company, really small business, hands on, grinding every day, making sales and engaging with our community to really create a safe space for women to shop and a service in being styled and building confidence. So for me, I feel like I've always represented the common in common language. Mac is the language and I'm the common. And I'm just very passionate about community spaces and having a place for people to thrive and living well
Yeah.
and being able to have everyone be on the same playing field. We haven't gotten into all like our backgrounds very much, but I'm biracial. My mom's Puerto Rican and my dad is white. And so for me, growing up, I always identified way more with the white and the privilege that comes with that. And as I've gotten older, I think I've very much appreciated, of course, my upbringing and my parents, but I've also learned to appreciate my Puerto Rican culture that much more because it's rich when you have it. And that messaging alone and that thinking in my brain has gotten me to want to advocate more for people, especially people who don't have voices and aren't able to leverage that privilege in the same ways. So I think for me, it's just something that I'm always aware of, and it's only gotten louder in my own head, especially being best friends with Mackenzie. It's like the two of us can go on for hours talking about anything. So, especially when we talk about human rights and values and morals. So, it's just one of those things. I'm a Cancer, but I'm actually a Virgo rising and my moon is Gemini. So, I really identify a lot more with that than I do the Bible, for example. But learning what life has to offer and being able to have the ability to explore is just such a huge privilege. And so common language really started, not even kidding, at my kitchen table here in New York City when we were just spitballing how we always do about whatever topic, because one thing Mac and I can do is talk for hours. And whether it's reality TV and debating what's going on, because we always disagree, especially when it comes to Summer House. Like, we're always like, no, this person, no, that person. But when it comes to politics, and especially just in this environment right now, we just felt like really compelled to try and get an audience that would potentially not really that be that into politics. Like I said, my career has nothing to do with politics on a frontline end. On a line end, everyone's career has something to do with politics because policy
Right.
goes into everything. And
That
that's
makes
something
me,
else that we want to highlight.
yeah, that makes me think, Casey, your example too. Devil Wears Prada, where Anne
Yes.
Hathaway is minimizing the difference between the two
Cerulean. Cerulean
color choices. And Meryl Streep
runs
sets her
her
straight
down.
and says, "Oh, you think this is just some basic, banal, like shallow, materialistic industry where
Yep.
we're choosing between two colors that are essentially the same? No, this is a business." And schools her
Mhm.
and all of the mechanisms that are behind. But
Right.
when you pull it back, there is policy behind it, there is business behind it, there is industry behind it. So I think, to your point, Case, that is so
Hmm.
true.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also what inspires me every day. I think as a creative, you have to engage with things that are actively fulfilling to you. And at a certain point, what I was doing wasn't really actively fulfilling me. And when you talk about where the world is going and the things that you can do, it's very exciting. So I get really riled up about these topics. But at the same time, I can recognize that I'm not an expert, and so it's great to have Mac's dialogue here, showing us the facts and being able to really give a perspective with her expertise of what is really happening, because I do feel that there's a missing link with the administration currently, the way that they're controlling the media, and the way that it's actually impacting everyone's lives. I heard someone on TikTok, I didn't know them, but they were saying it's Jimmy Kimmel today, it's you tomorrow. It will all get squeezed down and it will all filter. And at the end of the day, I think it's just important for community involvement and making that cool again. So you can have someone with a decorated career like Mackenzie who knows this stuff inside out, or you can just be the common person who wants to also have common decency and hold themselves to a higher standard. I know that these people are out there, and that's who we want to speak to, and that's who we want to learn from. When we're hoping to have really cool, engaging conversations around policy and around being an American and what that's like today, and how we can really truly raise the needle and elevate instead of going through all of this noise.
Yeah. To your point, too, we always talk about how the times are changing. A lot of the stuff that we cover is a reflection of our society evolving and changing of norms and changing of times. And one of those things that is changing too is our media landscape and where
Yes.
people are getting their news and what types of media are putting out the information. And in a way, I agree with the administration here for a second in saying that we do have to question and reposition like where legacy media sits in our country,
Yep.
right? There should be diverse news sources with diverse perspectives, and it should not be consolidated to three major broadcasting stations.
Right.
And today, with technology, it's all that plays a role too in how people are consuming and getting their information too. The dawn of social media, and I think that's another interesting point. When Case and I met at UConn, I had a BlackBerry, okay? There was no like instant notification of the
Right.
news hitting my phone. There was no TikTok. Twitter had just come out, really,
Yeah.
and that was emerging. And like it started to become a space where people were getting news and information. And podcasts, I don't think I really started listening to podcasts until like after college, probably like truly the year after I graduated from UConn. I remember engaging with podcasts more. It's great that we have all these different types of outlets and channels and vehicles to cover what's happening. And so using this and then our other channels like TikTok, Instagram, Substack, which we'll get to what's in the future for common language, but hint, hopefully Substack, using those social media channels to bring new voices to news and policy coverage and conversations that hopefully can be more inclusive.
And I think the other message is we really want to educate. Mac said she'd love to be a student forever, but maybe you're really just going to be a teacher, Mac. I learn from her all the time. This space is so important because really, in order to truly empower, you need to first educate so that people can make these informed decisions. Like I was mentioning earlier, this whole idea about critical thinking, it's going to the wayside when we're just scrolling on our phones and we're listening to people talk and we're taking that at face value. And I think that's when things start to get really dangerous. And when you look at the landscape, especially when you talk about political violence, and we're going to keep this light, but everything is like, and on Discord or in wherever deep web, like it just feels like people are grasping on things from places that there's no light. And we want to be in a place where there's light, where we're telling the truth. Here's the information. This is actually what the policy will do for you. This is actually what
Mm-hmm.
it won't do for you. Here are where Republicans are failing right now. And it's not because we don't like Republicans, it's because this is just the facts, right? So when you come from a place of taking it back to school and either we're in a pass fail environment, at the end of the day, the job of government is to protect, to guide, to lead, and create structure that benefits the people. And when
Mm-hmm.
we are losing pieces of that every day, we need to understand what pieces are we losing and where is the risk. And I feel that with all of the places that you can get information nowadays, we need more voices to elevate just what's happening. And I think, of course, our opinions are always going to be muddled, especially me, because when I'm listening to what's going on, I'm reacting in real time. You'll see that on our TikTok, you'll see that on our Instagram, the ways that we post. It's very intentional because we want to be real with you guys and we want you to understand that for me, I'm learning just as you're learning, and we want this to be a real conversation.
Yeah, exactly. The other part that you were saying too a little bit earlier, Case, was your experience more in like industry and private sector, because that's another theme that I feel comes up a lot here. It's what is the role of the public sector and government versus the private sector in regulation,
Yeah.
in creating structure or norms and policy. How do they talk to each other? How do they set the standards for our society? And you have such great insight into what it takes to run a business,
Yeah.
right? Going back to Kim Kardashian, not everybody knows. If you
Not
had a
everyone.
business, you would understand, but you don't. Okay. And
It's the truth.
I feel like you come with that information and that knowledge and that perspective too, which balances out. Because another thing about both the research side of policy and the legislative making pieces of policy is a lot of times they're far removed from
Hmm.
the people.
Yeah.
The research can get very ivory tower and theoretical,
Yep.
and the policy, it can, again, I will say it, it can get swampy. It can become the swamp of DC and politics and not really understanding what that average consumer or the average business owner is going through or what their challenges are. So having that piece of it too, I think helps us have a well-rounded and more comprehensive approach to the type of things that we talk about and how we talk about them on Common Language.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And we want to be able to share this information in a way that's really digestible. So when we talk about our name, Common Language, how we came to be in that respect as well, we were brainstorming. And I don't even know how it really came to be, aside from the fact that I felt that Common Language was the direct impact that we were trying to have.
Yeah, just, yeah, we were trying to really take the conversations that Casey and I were having as best friends, person to person, to another platform and about and pushing ourselves to talk about other topics and
Mhm.
do the research behind them with our perspective. So it was about like that conversation that you have with friends or at a dinner table about today's news, what's
Yeah.
going on, politics, policy, all that you would have with friends, and having it here on the pod, right? We try our best. And you guys, whenever, if I ever get too weedy or
Yeah.
start with the alphabet soup of all these different government names and agencies, like, please stop me. Because, like I said, the policy, it can get wonky. And that's what I learned too so much in grad school. You hear all these politicians talking, and Congress is kind of like the way it works, like procedurally and everything, it is complicated because it's a lot of rules. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, you can take it down to the fundamentals.
Yeah.
And that's where I think you'll engage more people and people
Yeah.
can really start to bite into something. And it doesn't have to be these like pundits on the traditional media stations
Yeah.
having these like debates with big words and everything like that. It's like how we talk about politics when it's just me and Casey like hanging out. That's what we're trying to do here.
Exactly. And make it less of a scary topic. We need to cut through the narrative that politics is like a dirty word or hard to understand, or just like we don't talk religion and politics. Like on this podcast, we talk both. Like on
Yeah.
this podcast, we uncover things because I think that's part of the reason of why we are where we are right now is that we've had a lack of education and a lack of interest because we've allowed politics and politicians who were maybe not the best and were maybe a little bit shady to color and impact the ways in which we engage with it. And that is really what I want to change. And that's something that's important to me because not only do I know politics impacts everyone, but that it will be all the more better with more engagement, more voters, more people coming to the table, more ideas. Because we need that. We need fresh ideas. We need new concepts and a generation of people who are looking to be informed on the topics and then apply their critical thinking to be strategic and make America really the country that it can be instead of all the divisions that we have right now. And I was telling Mac earlier, I just can't allow myself to go down in the trenches with my thinking. I have to be positive. We have to come from a place of yes, we can. And even if it's tough, we can get through it. Even if we get thrown curveballs, the whole ship isn't going down. We can't operate that way. And I think that fundamentally, once we can release those cliches about politics and about government, we can actually start to absorb what is good and how we can grow stronger and grow more united.
Yeah, no, I agree too. And to your point there too, it's also that's why we try our best to citing our sources in our description
Yep.
or when we're making TikToks. Like I put the news source that I'm talking about like directly there, whether it's NBC, CBS, Politico, etc. This is where I'm getting the information from. These are the statistics that we're referring to, right? We're not making this up. These are facts. And then we are speaking on those things with our personal opinions and our perspectives based on our experiences. And the whole goal or the aspiration is that like other people take that in and come to their own conclusions, right? Use their critical thinking skills, use their experiences to digest that information and make decisions about their future and how they want to be involved in policy and politics and voting, etc. So hopefully that's what people take away from this. But our goal really is to say, this is what's going on in layman's terms. This is how we feel about it, and then throw it back. We're always open to the comments
Yes.
and any feedback.
Yeah.
And if there is anything that listeners want to hear more of or feel like is missing, we're 10 episodes in, so we are still learning and growing. The pod and CLP will continue to evolve, I'm sure. So
Yep.
we're very open-minded as well to how to improve, get better, and listen to feedback.
Absolutely. We love to go through our TikTok comments. I will talk to anyone. I think it's important to engage in healthy discussions and push the needle and not back down when we are feeling strongly about things. So, we are so down to chat. When we talk about the future and what's to come on the podcast, we would love to have guests on. We love to pick people's brains. We love to have experts in their field come join us, talk to us about how the policy is going, what are things that maybe we don't know. Would love to have someone in the healthcare industry on here. Would love to have someone in the tech space on here. Would love to continue the conversation. The more we connect, the more we also find that common ground and common space amongst each other.
Yeah. Thinking about the future of CLP, we're definitely excited to continue covering all things Congress, all things politics, all things this administration. And to Casey's point earlier, we are fun too. And
We're really fun.
we're fun. Community and culture is something that excites us both. So
Mhm.
we also want to continue to highlight what the intersection is
Yeah.
of culture, community, society, and politics, policy, etc., where all those things mirror each other or overlap or influence each other. Picking stories that may not initially seem like they're policy heavy on the surface, like the cutting room floor and the salary, and unpacking it
Mhm.
to talk about what is the policy behind this, what is the political context behind all of this. Hopefully having more guests on, like Casey was talking about. And then, like I was saying earlier, exploring the Substack space a little bit more. I think Casey and I both like to write, getting into that. And we're trying our best with the TikToks,
We're
guys. Like I
trying. We're millennials
we're
and we're trying really
millennials.
hard.
We're trying our best, but pushing ourselves to get on all these different platforms and spaces and vehicles and channels to carry our message. But I'm excited to whatever the future holds. And I think in today's age and landscape, we're not short on any news to cover or anything like that. There's so much going on in this new cycle. So finding innovative and creative ways to approach that is our goal.
We're excited and we're really fired up to keep this going and keep engaging with everyone. So, I also forgot to mention earlier that I do have two siblings, and my brother continuously wants a shout out on the pod. So, TJ, if you're listening, here's your shout out. And I have a beautiful sister as well, Chelsea. So, just so I can plug them and be a good sister.
Yes, we love the plug. And now I feel like I have to also give my proper shout out. And this is also going back to a little bit about me. I
Mm.
come from a blended family and a very large extended family. So I have lots of cousins, lots of family and siblings. My younger sister, Maddie, actually helps us out with the podcast. And so we have
Shout
to
out,
give Maddie a
Maddie.
shout out,
Shout out,
like
Maddie.
to the 10th degree right now,
Yeah.
because she has really been behind the scenes with a lot of this. So love you, Maddie. And then, like I said, I come from a blended family. So I have a younger brother who is in high school. Love you, son. And then two older stepsisters as well, who I think they listen to. I'm like, I think they listen to the pod.
Yeah.
So Monica Monet, shout out if you are listening.
Yes. That's a wrap for us today. We're super excited to see where this goes and keep on keeping on. That's what we
Yes.
have to do these days. So, as usual, thank you for listening and hit us up on our socials. We'd love to chat with you. Everyone,
Stay safe, stay good.
stay safe, stay good. Maybe is that our exit?
I, a shout out to Casey's mom.
Yeah,
You guys need a better.
exit. We're working on the exit, so work in progress.
Yes. So if there's any recommendations on a signature sign off,
Let us know. Peace out, everyone.
bye.